I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, I want to show you 5 essential delay times that you should have in your back pocket for different musical scenarios. We'll start off with this Chilia Bell Aurora plugged straight into the Axe-FX 3. I have the Class A 30-watt Brilliant amp model dialed up with the matching Dynacab. I just have a sprinkle of large room reverb on there. Let's have a listen to the split mode on this guitar. I've got both pickups on. They are humbuckers, but they have been split. Then we'll hear the bridge humbucker on its own. I'm just in love with the character tones that you can get out of that amp, and it's going to be a great platform for what we're doing today. Let's start off with an all-time classic delay effect, a slapback delay. And you're going to hear this used in so many different styles of music, going right back to the birth of electric guitar music. It's a common effect used in country music, early rock and roll, 60s rock, 70s rock. You hear it all the time used on different instrument sources like vocals and drums. But in front of an amp like this, taking something like the mono BBD delay and going for between 100 and 150 milliseconds, to me, that's my go-to slapback range. I tend to just go with 120 as the starting point. You can see I've got the mix here around 20%, and I've got the feedback very low. If I have the feedback at 0, I'm just going to get a single repeat on there. This would be the main parameter to experiment with on here. If you go for a really high feedback, you can get a very cool runaway reverb style effect. If you go for a low feedback, the whole thing is going to be a little more subtle. So let's just hear again those split coil modes on this guitar. Then I'm going to kick in this slapback. Just adds density to the overall guitar sound, and this can be a great way to thicken up some rhythm guitar parts, to add some character to lead parts, or as I'm doing here, as like a reverb enhancer in front of the amp. With all of these examples, I'd encourage you to experiment with the delay type. Use the time, feedback, and mix settings here as a starting point and dial it in to what you think sounds good. We could hear there with a very low feedback. The effect was pretty subtle, but as soon as we crank that feedback up, you get that classic rockabilly style slap out of it. So it's great for country, it's great for rock, and I think slapback is often forgotten in the conversation of great modern guitar delay tones, but it has so much utility in there. All right, let's switch over now to another modern classic, and this would be a rhythmic delay. So we're going for something slightly longer than a slapback on there. We're going to have the mix quite high on here. Again, Start with the feedback maybe slightly lower, but you can experiment with that one if you just want, say, a single repeat or you want a lot of wash on there. But the idea would be you're aiming for a rhythmic value that you can play off against. In this case, I'm going for 300 milliseconds, and I'm going to play at a particular tempo where those delays come in between adjacent notes on my playing. It's going to make me sound like basically I'm playing a lot faster than I am. This particular delay trick is as old as delay itself, but players like The Edge, Alex Lifeson, and David Gilmour really made it their own. The only issue is having to calculate a delay time as a particular subdivision of the tempo of the song makes it really hard when you want to quickly change the tempo of the song on the fly. So the way that we can do that in the Axe effects is to set up our tempo parameter on here. The classic one is a dotted eighth note delay. You can see at the moment I've got the preset tempo at 150 BPM, so a dotted eighth note delay at 150 BPM just so happens to be 300 milliseconds on there. I'll play again with that same sound, but then I can tap in a different tempo, let's say a slightly slower tempo, play eighth notes at that tempo, and then have my delays come in between what I'm playing. I personally like running rhythmic delays in front of the amp using something like the vintage digital, one of the BBD or one of the tape style delays on there because they are quite bandwidth limited and they clash with the main guitar sound a little less. Another great rhythmic subdivision that I sometimes use is a quarter note triplet. It's very close to the dotted eighth note on there. So you can see at 130 BPM, a dotted eighth note happens to be 346 milliseconds. If I bring up a quarter note triplet over here, it's 308 milliseconds. Let's have a listen to the difference between the two of those. The quarter note triplet, just because it's a little bit shorter, but it's still rhythmically synced, kind of has this pushed quality to it, whereas the dotted eighth note has this lovely precision about it. I always associate the quarter note triplet with Pat Thrall, who played with the Pat Travis Band, and on one of my favorite albums of all time, the Hughes and Thrall album, you can hear that quarter note triplet delay time all over that. And that's a delay time that took me so long to figure out. I just assumed it was a dotted eighth note. No, it's the slightly shorter quarter note triplet. You can play around with any rhythmic subdivision that you like on here. I mean, have a look at this. We've got 78 different possible subdivisions in here. I think the dotted eighth note and the quarter note triplet are probably going to be the ones to go to if you want that classic effect though. Next up, we've got dual delays. You can use dual delays in a variety of different ways. I'm running them in parallel at the moment with the dual delay, and I've chosen two different yet contrasting rhythmic subdivisions. This is a real classic for a lead delay, a quarter note delay on the left channel and a dotted eighth note delay on the right channel. Another way to do this would be to set both values at a quarter note and use the left-right time ratio. You could set it to 75% to get the values that I've got here. You could try 50%, you could try 60 or 66%. Just think of any ratio that you like and you can plug that in. What's nice about that approach, which we'll try after we hear this, is that the feedback on the delay lines will scale. But first, let's hear this classic dual delay. This is an instant cheat code on there, and being able to plug in values that are synced up to the tempo of the song makes it so easy for those delays to sit around your main guitar tone. You've got the dry guitar down the center, then you've got a left channel and a right channel, which are different values on there. And again, using this left-right time ratio is the easy way to do that. Set the same rhythmic subdivision or the same time on there, plug in your ratio of choice, and then set the feedbacks the same on each of them. Again, this ratio will scale the feedbacks on there. The dual delay has so many other tricks that you can experiment with as well. I've done some videos about it here and on my channel, but for now, let's move on. This is going to use a very, very short delay now. I've gone for a 7 millisecond delay, no feedback, panned hard right over here. And you can see that I have connected this delay block in parallel at 100% mix. So it's 7 milliseconds later than our dry sound, and it is panned hard right. The dry sound, I've gone ahead and panned hard left in the cab block. So let's have a listen to just the left channel on here, totally dry. Then I'm going to add in this 7 millisecond copy of it, panned hard right. This is going to give us a widening or doubling effect. Luckily, there is a block that is dedicated to this sort of effect. It is called the enhancer block. Let's drop it in here. And the enhancer is just a very short delay. And we've got a couple of different modes in here: classic, modern, and stereoizer. If we just go for the classic mode over here, this will more or less do the exact same effect that we had over there. We can just play around with the width control rather than having to set up the short delay and the zero feedback and the mix and all the panning tricks in there. Let's just have a listen to what the enhancer does. And then we'll hear a couple of different modes on the enhancer. Very short delays, we've looked at short slapback delays, rhythmic delays, and some dual delays. Let's look at some very long delays in here. I'm going to use the mono tape delay in here because these techniques originally used long loops of tape on here, whether it's early tape pioneers who were using the studio like a musical instrument, whether it's players like Robert Fripp and his Frippatronics technique, or whether it's players like Brian May who constructed entire pieces of music using this. Using long delays is a great way to essentially interact and improvise with yourself on here. So I've gone for 2000 milliseconds of delay, or 2 seconds, quite a high mix. Added a little bit of level on here. The feedback is only at 20%, but if you wanted essentially to create an infinite loop on here, you could crank the feedback right up. If you just wanted a single repeat, set it to 0 on there. I think this is a pretty cool starting point. It always takes a little while for me to get into the groove with this, but when you do, you can really start having some fun with this. So I'll go to that bridge humbucker again. Check this out. to 16 seconds of delay from a single delay block in here. And one trick that I love doing is manipulating the motor speed parameter while using those sound on sound effects on there. So let's right click the motor speed parameter and map that to our expression pedal. On here, it's external controller 1 for me. I'm going to set the minimum at 1 and the maximum on 2 over here. That way, when I push forward on my expression pedal, I can create a pitch shifted warp style effect on there. I'm going to go for a really long delay on here as well. I'll go for the maximum 16 seconds, and I'll actually play you all out with this example. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think are the essential delay effects that you need in your repertoire as a guitar player? What are some of your go-to times for rhythmic delays, slapback delays, and lead delays? And how do you like using the delay block creatively? Let me know, and maybe at some point in the future, I will try to incorporate all of those tips and tricks that you suggest into a video. I would love to try that. Otherwise, I will see you all on next week's Tuesday Tone Tip.